ladies and gentlemen. My name's James Hayes, I'm the Mayor. Before we start, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional owners, pay respects to elders past and present. Today we've got some representatives from Laing O'Rouke, we've got Darren, and we've got Phil from Public Works. We've also got Dick Adams in the room. I think that's about all I need to say. Thanks very much for coming, and we'll try and get this over with as quickly as possible. I'll pass on to Darren.
As you might have been told as you walked in, we're limited to 100 people tonight. It's a new stipulation by the federal government, so unfortunately if people come in over to 100, they'll need to wait outside, but we will call them in after we're done with your lot, and then we can brief them through as well. So we got you spaced around 1.5 metres apart as well. There's a reason for that as well. It's been stipulated by the federal government, so that's why. Also, if we can just get people to put their phones on silent. Last night there were some wonderful tunes coming through. I quite enjoyed them, but they started ringing quite heavily throughout the night, and it just became a bit of a disturbance. So if you can just phone on silent for us, that'd be great. As James said, my name's Darren Hubsher. We've been contracted to do the bushfire cleanup on behalf of Public Works and the state and federal government. We have commenced works in and around the south coast, and we're moving over into the Snowy Valley, Snowden area in the coming weeks. It's been a massive task. We've over 2,500 houses that we need to clear up. We're about 6 or 7 weeks in now. It takes time to get contractors on board, getting policies sorted out and processes in place, but the reason we're here today is we're going to be kicking off in your area very shortly in the coming weeks. The works is in certain stages, so what we'll do is, for those who have opted in through the Services New South Wales website, hopefully everyone has. If you haven't, please jump on and register your property for the cleanup as an opt-in. Once you're registered, we actually get your property details, and then we can commence the process of getting your property cleared up. If you have not registered, we don't know about your property. So please just double check. I understand the week after the fires come through, everyone was in a traumatic state. You're asked to register multiple things. You might not have registered for your property for the clear up. You might have registered with Red Cross, you might have registered with other parties. So if you haven't, please just double check. Ask your wife, ask your neighbours where they are, ask your family, and ask your friends where they're registered as well. So, like I said, it's an opt-in process. Jump on the Services New South Wales and register your property. So I've got a question on the back there quick.
What if you're not technologically advanced to get on the net?
Go to the library.
Yeah, so there's support around here, so the recovery centres, they do have computers. They're open, from what I know, on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Yep. They will help you. Yeah, you can also call through and register. If you do have a mobile phone that's working, or you can come into the recovery centre, you can call through and get you registered as well. So it's more than one way to skin a cat, hopefully. So yeah, no, good question. So again, ensure that you're registered. You'll be on our radar. We will then commence the process of making contact with you in the coming weeks. The next 2 weeks, we'll commence that process. Firstly, our comms people will make a phone call or email. Some people are living in areas without computers, some people living in an area that haven't got mobile reception. So if we can't get through, we'll leave a voicemail. We will text you. Hopefully we can come back into town. You have mobile reception. You'll get the message, and then we can then arrange to meet on your property site and then start looking at the works. Once we arrange that date and the time to meet on your property, what we do is go through a thing called a scope of works, which means the clear up of your property. Now, about a quarter of properties or thereabouts are uninsured. If your property is uninsured, you might want to retain some structures or slabs or whatever it be to lessen your rebuild costs. So we'll go through the scope of works. Some people just want it cleared up, everything gone. If you want to retain structures or slabs or whatever it is, we'll go through that scope of works. We will agree with you on that. We'll sign off. To access your property, we just can't go on without your consent, so we have a thing called a deed of release. Once we agree to scope of works, we'll get a deed of release, we'll agree a date. And what we'll do is we'll then have consent from you to then go to your property and commence the clean-up. Once we've undertaken the clean-up, we will get you back. A lot of people will sit around and watch the works getting cleared up. It's almost that grievance period of moving on. So once it's cleared up, if you're there, you're more than welcome to come and watch. If it's an asbestos property, we'll ask you to maintain a safe distance as well. But we're not going to stop you from watching your property get cleared up. Once it is cleared up, there'll be a clearance certificate if there's asbestos on the property. If there's no asbestos, we'll provide a sign-off scope of works and who's got their phone on? And so the property will be handed back to you, and then you can then submit for a DA or rebuild or whatever you're going to do after the property's cleared up. From the time that we undertake the site inspection and do a release review, we're anticipating a few weeks after that we get the ball rolling with the machines rolling into town. There's no fixed priority from or influences from government on our works. Okay, so it's a joint state and federal government funded thing. We're not taking influences from any party there. We basically look at the social aspect of each locality or township. That means people reliving the trauma going back into town every day. Okay, you're passing the petrol station, the cannery, the packing. There's a lot of people are revisiting trauma every time they go past it. So we'll try and commence the works in an area that's central to town and then probably move out of town. Now, we need to understand the social aspect of people's lives around here as well. A lot of people struggling mentally, post-traumatic stress and so on. So we want to try and get in and help those people quickly. Okay, that stage of recovering in a mental state is moving on with your life, and having that debris left on your property for such a long time, you haven't got the opportunity to move on. So we want to get that cleared up as quick as possible. Some people are well supported, some people are living interstate, some people have a very good support network and mental health program that helps them out. But we really want to try and help people move through that next stage of life and get back into the rebuilding phase. So we'll look at a priority section with that, or a priority listing. Listing's probably not a good word for it, but we take priorities around that social aspect. Okay, does everyone understand that at all? We're trying to keep it fair. We're trying to help communities by doing so without external influences. Another thing to try and help community is putting money back into the community. So we're looking at encouraging local tradies or local businesses to support us in rebuilding your community or cleaning up your community. So if you go on Services New South Wales, you can register your business to be part of a bushfire clean-up. There's no better way of putting money back in your pockets to clean up your community than bringing people outside the community back in here to clean up. The money's not going back into your pockets. So please register, jump on there and register.
What website was that, sorry?
Through Services New South Wales, you can actually register through there, and I'll take you through to a Laing O'Rouke link. It's called ICN, Industry Capability Network. You register and you express an interest for your business to be able to undertake the works. Don't be afraid to put any out there type businesses in there. We can always work with you, provide training, help you out, and hopefully you can help us out as well. So, pie vans, mobile cafes and stuff like our work crews and all that sort of stuff. So, we're going to try and help the community by doing so. Deb and Tim might think otherwise because the local cafe wants to go there. Sorry, Tim. So that's probably the process and the timing of when we're getting in and the prioritisation of the works. Batlow is one of those areas similar to Tumbarumba, similar to Cabargo, similar to Mogo and so on. But there's a safety aspect that we need to address pretty quick, which is the asbestos problem. So we will try and tackle the asbestos properties as quick as possible. There are limited contractors out there that can move friable asbestos away. They're busy at the moment. There's a company here working at the moment. We're hoping to get them on so they can continue working in the community once they finish with the cannery. We've spoken about the requirements of getting the program done quickly. They're out there seeking personnel that are licensed to be able to remove friable asbestos to support them. Where non-licensed people can support them in doing the works, we'll use the local people to come in and help. So it could be traffic control, could be spotters, and we do have some funding from New South Wales Training New South Wales, sorry, that can help train people locally. So when we leave Batlow, there's a legacy left behind of people upskilled and trained as well. So that's pretty well where we're at with that. Asbestos waste will be carted to Woodlawn facility in licensed vehicles or licensed trucks. Woodlawn's up near Tarrago, backside of Lake George. Clean building material or general builders waste will be taken to the Wagga facility. So we're going to have increased trucks on the road when we're doing it. Unfortunately, there's limited facilities around to be able to take asbestos, so we do need to take it to Woodlawn. But we'll have the vehicles and the trucks in place to be able to cater for the removal. Very quiet crowd. Anyone got any questions at all? Just on that level? Yep.
What's going to happen about,
Just stand up for a second.
what's going to happen about the train you talked about with the local towns here supplying money to push the training in, or is it going to be any assistance from the government?
So what we'll do is when we bring on people to work onto the project, we've got some registered training organisations, and what we'll do is we've got a training manager that looks at a training needs analysis to be undertaken in certain areas. So we'll train people in possibly traffic control, so they've got a licence at the end of it, excavation spotters, excavation operators and so on. So the registered training organisations will come in and train people up, give them a certificate of competency, and then when we move out of town and move on to the next one, we've left people behind with those licences and competencies to then be able to be more, flexible in working around the place in different types of disciplines. So we'll be managing the training side of things, and we'll be engaging the RTOs to help us on that. Yeah, thanks, man. Hello.
Hi,
Stand up.
can I just ask if your scope includes dangerous trees that are now left on properties because the fire's come through?
Very good question. It's probably the 999th time I've heard it in the last few months. So with trees, we need to come in and clean your property up. You need to access your property and you need to rebuild on that property. Any trees that are a safety concern to be able to do those three things, we will have them assessed by an arborist. I'm not a specialist in trees. They grow up, they get green, they get burnt and so on. But an arborist will make an assessment. If it's deemed to be a safety concern, we will remove them. If you have trees at the back of your property, which is a couple hundred metres away from your house, it does not fall within the scope. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Some people probably don't like hearing that, but the fact is we need to make sure it's safe for you to rebuild. Yeah. Any more questions? Yep, jump up. Sorry, the lady yelling. Oh, you can go.
Sorry. For those of us who are insured and have insurers waiting to come in to rebuild, is there any provision for actually undertaking those works ourselves and working it out with government afterwards for reimbursement?
So Phil Beddoe from Public Works.
Yeah, so just to introduce myself, I'm Phil Beddoe from Public Works. I'm the Southern Regional Program Manager for this particular project. In regards to, I suppose, insurance works that are going on, there is some information that's going to be coming out shortly. There's a New South Wales, Services New South Wales have some frequently asked questions and a fact sheet, which provides a little bit of clarity around the program, what's involved. In regards to insurance, obviously, the government made the announcement in January that the clean-up program, that they were going to fund the clean-up program for both the insured and the uninsured. Prior to that, the insurers were not covered under the clean-up program, and as we can recall, the fires sort of progressed from the northern end of the state through to the southern end of the state. So some of those fires that happened earlier up in the north coast, insurers had already progressed with those cleanups, and cleanups were progressing through to that time in which that announcement was made. So the government has made a commitment to fund the cleanup works that have been done by the insurers up until the time that announcement was made, on the basis that it's a similar scope to what's included under the program as well. Obviously, there were some works that were already in train at that time. They have also been included, but any works that would be happening from now, there's no guarantee that they'll be under the scheme. Yeah.
In regards to some of us have sheds that aren't near tar road, so they may be along a dirt road, and recently we had quite a lot of rain, so we had a bit of damage to our dirt roads. We had a scrap metal agent come and have a look at our shed to be cleaned up, because he said he was available to do it, and then he saw our road and he said, no, you won't even be able to get Service New South Wales to clean up to come along your road, and you have to get it fixed first. Has that been a problem at all? The roads, like, we were told that they're semi-trailers, they're big trucks. Yeah, has that been a problem?
Thanks, Belinda. Is that from the rains, the flood after the fire?
After the bushfires, yes.
Yeah, can you see us afterwards, and we might be able to, that's been declared a disaster, and we might be able to work something out there.
We have all types of machines out there that can get pretty well anywhere. So you might see big Moxie machines, which are like the big Tonka toy trucks that they use for building roads. If we need to get one of them in, we'll get them in. The excavators can pretty well get anywhere as well, so we should be
It was
fine.
more the removal of what was taken down by the truck, yeah.
We'll get there. There's a will, there's a way. Okay. Yes, gentlemen at the back, just stand up for us so I can hear.
Now, just a quick one. We're finding it hard to hear the question here. So could you please repeat the substance of the question before you answer, so we can
Yep.
understand what you're answering?
Yep, no problem.
Thank you.
Okay.
Could you talk a bit more about the actual process of the cleanup? For instance, the sheds, in our case, the shed's full of all sorts of vehicles, tractors, all burnt, and in amongst those are implements that are perfectly fine. We're not going in there because of the asbestos risk. I mean, are we going to be able to get some assistance with pulling some of that stuff out that we may wish to keep?
Yep.
Or are we required to do that ourselves?
Firstly, we haven't got a roaming mic because of the COVID-19 concerns as well, so apologies for that. We need to take all precautions and show some due diligence on that. So the question was around sheds on rural property, is that right? Yep. Which is damaged, from what I understand, or destroyed, or damaged, partially damaged?
Damaged.
Yep.
Vehicles and
Okay.
and then implements, farm machinery, etc. in amongst all that.
Yep.
Some which weren't burnt.
Yep. Okay.
It's a bit of it's a mix.
So with the eligibility, I mentioned it earlier before, but primary dwellings, small businesses and primary producers fall under the eligibility criteria for these works. If that shed is used as a business or a primary producing business, it will be cleaned up. And what we do is we'll come out and we'll scope the works. And like I said before, the owner of the property tells us how they want their property scoped. We don't tell you. Okay, so if you want to retain certain assets within there, we'll do everything as far as reasonably practicable to save it. You know, some structures are unstable and might put our workers in a bit of a risky situation, but we'll need to take it by case when we come out and look at each property. We've seen so many different scenarios out there, if I try and apply an answer to you now, it might not be the right one without having a look at it, but we'll try and retrieve anything that's usable and not destroyed. Yep. Maybe at the back.
I can understand from what you said that you were going to look at in town first. Will you have a plan after that to say you're going in this direction and you'll do all of those properties in that direction, and then the next, so that we have some idea of where you're heading?
Yeah,
and our properties will be done.
Did everyone hear that question? It was nice and clear. So it's around a priority in the locations that we're moving into after we move out of town. So we're looking at having concurrent multiple crews working here. So we just won't have one crew plodding around town. We're looking at having multiple crews hitting multiple work fronts. We try and do it in clusters where we can. Now, some of the rural properties, we'll still call it a cluster if they're 1 or 2 kilometres apart. It's no problem at all. We'll focus that team working on those clusters. Everybody needs to understand somebody's going to be first and somebody's going to be last, but nobody will be forgotten throughout this process. The unfortunate ones that are last, we should have a majority of those works done by the end of June, cleared up around here. So whether you're done in May or done in June, it seems a long time, but we're trying to work within the time frame to get it all done as well within that period of time. So if your house is destroyed, you're probably not going to have it rebuilt before winter or during that time. So to answer your question, yes, we'll be doing concurrent works and we'll be hitting multiple work fronts. I was waiting for you.
How are you? Are you going to clean up the houses that have been totally destroyed first, or are you going to do rural properties and people that have just had their fences scorched and stuff?
No, so the social aspect of it, it's a very good question. Did everyone hear that? So do we clean up rural areas first, where there's fencing and barns and sheds down, or do we concentrate on the houses? We want to get people back into their properties as quick as possible. So first and foremost is primary residence. We need to get people back into their houses as quick as possible. So they'll be cleaned up first. It gives you then an opportunity to lodge your DA or consult with your builder, or look at buying a shed to replace what you previously had. So it's definitely a focus there. We also look at people who have holiday houses here that potentially live in Queanbeyan or Wagga or in Sydney as well. So we want to ensure that people are getting back into their primary residence. If it's a secondary residence, that won't be an entire focus for us straight away. We want to get you, the people that live here, back into your normal way of life straight away. Okay, so we'll get it cleared up. Go on.
But just a question, we're probably all asking the same questions. They're probably all asking the same sort of questions in terms of priority. You're saying that the properties with asbestos will be one priority. Properties within the town limits is another priority.
Yep.
We own 3 of the 5 houses that were destroyed in the Adenong, Ellerslie area.
Yep.
And we've got a transportable house that will be ready within 7 weeks. Is that sort of thing, would that be taken into account, or are we just on the, we'll get there when we get there? I'm sure other people are in the same boat.
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. So it's around the priority of people living out of town as well. When I go back to I've been speaking to a lot of people over the last few months who are really struggling with mental health and post-traumatic stress, and you just want to get rid of that image out of your face or out of your mind. It's the fire come through, and you just can't move on until you get rid of that debris that's on the ground that you're passing every day as well. I saw a lady up here and I heard her talk and she was crying again today. So we want to try and get it cleared up where multiple people, or the masses that are struggling, are going past these properties every day. So I'm glad you said you got a relocatable home coming in. If you're in an area that's not
I think in our case, like it might be a problem putting the place there, but I don't really want to live right next to the house that was destroyed. And
Yeah.
the house that was destroyed has asbestos in it, so.
Yeah, you don't put yourself in danger. So. Yeah, just on that as well, is we're finding a lot of people want to go in and scavenge, I shouldn't say scavenge around, but fossick around and try and find valuables in the debris of their property. If you do have asbestos signing, or you know there's asbestos there, think about your health. You're only here for a short time. You want to make the most out of it and live as long as you can. So please do not put yourself in danger by fossing around where there's asbestos contaminated properties. Elevated structures, roofs are about to collapse. It's just not worth it. Wait until we come out there, and we might be able to help you find some of these items if they're significant. We're not going to fossick around and look for bracelets and necklaces, but we will look for significant items that help you out for a short period of time and get them clear up. Okay, if we stop for every single property, we'll never get a place cleared up on time. Yes.
Given what you've just said about health issues, we've been well aware of that for about 3 months now. And the thought of waiting another 3 months is what really worries me, with tin and the spray on asbestos starting to wear off and so forth. So if we were to take the initiative and employ another contractor, like next week, tomorrow, what processes can we go through, like the people in northern New South Wales, to get reimbursed by the state government? Because there's got to be some simple way. The insurance companies have used this process to stall us now for 3 months, and we're very well aware of that health issue.
The consistent message we're trying to put out there in regards to asbestos is that if left undisturbed, it poses minimal risk to the community. So that's, I suppose that's the key message that we're trying to get out there. So if people are actually going into these areas where there is asbestos containing material and possibly stirring that up, that's where the health risk is. In regards to trying to get someone else involved, a similar situation to the insurers, that there is this date that has been given, and certainly the state has made no commitment to reimbursing anybody after that time who wants to take activities into their own hands. Now, there's nothing stopping people from undertaking works through a contractor, but there's no guarantee that there'll be any reimbursement for that after that time in which Laing O'Rouke were engaged. I suppose the whole idea of the program is to have a coordinated approach, and an approach where we don't get cowboys in doing the wrong thing, taking material and dumping it in places where they shouldn't. So to try and make sure that occurs, there's been, I suppose, those constraints put around it as far as people undertaking those works themselves.
A lot of people ask the same question because they just want to move on with their life. It's been there too long.
It's not about that.
Yeah.
We live in a windy, wet environment, and the asbestos is blowing around, and that's the reality of it.
Yeah, I suppose we were at Tumbarumba last night. A similar question came up. The other part that I explained last night was that we have been undertaking air monitoring across the state at various locations. We have not got any readings from any of that air monitoring that's been undertaken that suggest that there are any levels of asbestos that are above the safe exposure limits. Public Works has been involved in a number of bushfires before, and in Coonabarabran, Blue Mountains, Tathra, and a similar scenario with all of those air monitoring being undertaken at the time of the fires or just after the fires, and for a period thereafter. In Tathra, there was continuous air monitoring that was undertaken for a period of 6 months. They obviously get very windy conditions being there on the coast, and again, there were no results that came out of that air monitoring that suggested that there was asbestos in a state that was above the safe exposure limits.
As for corrugated iron, we're coming into the winter periods where the winds do pick up, particularly with the cold fronts coming in. So we will do that when we get out to each individual property. We'll make it safe when we get there, but beforehand, it's probably the onus on the owner to try and throw some sort of sandbag or something. If you've got loose corrugated iron and you physically can't do it yourself, is there any volunteer groups up here working in the Batlow area that's supporting any of these?
Not if it's got asbestos in it, you're not sending
Yeah,
volunteers in there,
that's right. But it's a clear property and we're worried about corrugated iron. Victor, do we know of any volunteer groups up there at all? No.
You don't want volunteer groups.
Yeah. But yeah, we won't be making it safe until we actually get to your job to clear it up. Yes?
There's a man up
Just from what you're been experiencing already, how long do you think it would take to clear like this area? Was it about 6 weeks? Or less, more? And do you do a warning to the rest of the town? Like, do you put something out saying, okay, we're coming in to clean up, there could be asbestos moved, just a warning to the rest of the town so they know?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Did everyone hear that? It's around the duration of the cleanup, and it's around notification of clearing asbestos properties is probably the more concern that you've raised there. So under legislation, we do have an obligation to notify people within proximity of asbestos removal. We will be doing that notification. We're not coming in today, not coming back again. We're actually setting up in the recovery centre. Our office will be based next to the library down here, and we will have a team on the ground down here. Now, there will be some ongoing correspondence possibly coming out through the council's webpage with updates of works that are progressing. We will have possibly a notice board set up down there to let people know what's going on as well. As for the 6 weeks, every location is unique in itself, particularly around logistics and the greater area. So for this area here, the Snowy Valleys incorporates Tumbarumba, Taupingo, Adelong, Canara and so on. So if you're talking about the Batlow area and the Tumbarumba area and all these areas, all I can say at this point in time is we should be cleared up by 30th of June. That's our focus at this point in time. So, sorry, there's a gentleman over the back here. Probably been
just
tied on.
A couple of quick questions. The first is where our house is, and now we've had a shed and a barn next to it and whatnot. It's posed a bit of an inconvenience as to where it's all sort of fallen. So I've taken the initiative to with a front end loader and whatever to sort of neaten it up a little bit.
Yep.
Is that going to cause issues for you guys if I move stuff into a bit of a safer
Not
area?
at all, you're helping us out. Thank you.
Like it's just spread out, with the wind and all that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. It's just blowing everywhere. I've tried to stockpile it.
Yeah, you're lucky you got the opportunity to be able to do that, but
Yeah.
it's not a problem. If you're registered and it's eligible to do the works, we'll be in there clearing it up after.
And also just one more quick question as well. In terms of communication, since my old man obviously registered, he's heard nothing at all. There's been no sort of touch base with him to give him any indication that anything's moving forward with it all.
Yep,
So he's a bit in the
so
dark.
that's happening in the coming weeks.
Yeah.
So we're going back to the process I spoke about earlier. We'll be making contact in the coming weeks with each resident.
So there'll be a bit of notice, in other words,
Yeah,
because he's in Sydney and
yep.
you know what I mean, all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah, so we'll reach out by phone call and email and just go from there to arrange the site visits. Sorry, Phil.
no drama.
Yeah, I just might make a comment on that. Well, we have had an issue with some people moving with large machinery. There remains the debris from the bushfire, which has been asbestos contaminated, and then that's caused more contamination and made the job much bigger. So I suppose we aren't encouraging people to be moving things because of that, and obviously for your own safety as well. If you're moving moving asbestos-containing material, then there's that obviously that risk of stirring up dust.
Yeah, it's more or less just like, you know, steel and stuff like that, and, you know, just sheds, tin sheds and all that jazz. It wasn't really asbestos.
Yeah, so probably just one of the other things which hasn't been explained was that there has been an initial building impact assessment process undertaken, and you might see some of those hazard identification signs that have been put up. Across the state, the stats are about there's approximately 90% of properties across the state have actually had someone out to have a look and do an inspection. And generally, when those inspections have been undertaken, one of the things that they're looking for there is for any sort of asbestos material. So often you might see that on the hazard identification sign, it might say asbestos suspected, sample taken. In that scenario, that we have had a licensed asbestos assessor out there who's taken a sample, and there should be a result available for that, just to give you an understanding of what might be on your property. So that information's been fed in to Laing O'Rouke into their clean-up program for them to have an understanding of what properties they'll be cleaning up that have been identified as having asbestos, and those ones that hasn't been identified. But yeah, that sort of certainly is there to help people get an understanding of what hazards might be on their property. One of the other questions that came up last night was in regards to that signage. Are people allowed to remove that? Well, that sign's there as it's there for owners to give them some advice about what some of those hazards might be. So as the owner of the property, you can remove that sign. If it's still there when Laing O'Rouke come to do the clean-up works, they'll remove that sign at that time.
Fiona or Alex, do we have more people coming in for a second session at all, do you know, or that's it? Okay, so we'll continue a little bit longer with this. We were looking at a couple of sessions and trying to limit it to 45 minutes, but because we've got no one else coming in, we can extend it a little bit longer. So, gentlemen.
Three questions. Firstly, when's the scope of works? When are you going to be coming out to do the scope of work for each individual property? One. Two, what sort of lead time are you going to give us prior to coming onto the property? Because some properties will need services disconnected, will need some preparation done before your team comes on site. And thirdly, given the relatively fluid situation we find ourselves in with respect to COVID-19, how are you going to protect your guys? Because they're going to come into the community from outside. My concern is that we can put together the best program in terms of this is when it's all going to happen. And one of your guys gets the virus, then I presume it's going to be down tools and the whole program blows out. So have you got anything in place at the present time with respect to how you're going to manage that?
Yeah, so very good questions actually. So the first question was around the lead time of...
No, when is the scope of works? When
Yeah,
will be speaking to your guys?
So the initial contact will be made by our communications team, as I said earlier. So we will then arrange a scope of works or meet on your property site within a few weeks, being 1 or 2 or maybe 3 at the max. We'll agree that date with you, being the owner. Now, a lot of people aren't in the region at the moment. Some are staying at relatives' place. We want to try and work with you what's best for you, not so much best for us. It might take a week or 2 to be able to do that. So once we agree the scope of works and release the deed of release, we will likely be in there within the next week or 2 after that to commence the works. As for COVID-19, it's changing every day at this point in time. Oh, sorry.
You missed one, lead time. So your lead time for the scope of works is a couple of weeks?
Yeah, a couple of weeks, yeah. COVID-19, it's affecting everyone at the moment. It's affecting us as a business. It's affecting the state government and public works. It changes every day. I'm supposed to be in Fiji next week, that's not going to happen. But anyway, that's my problem. But it is changing every single day, and we need to be proactive in reacting to the changes as well. What we're finding is a supervisory team will be based in the community very quick. If there's an issue within the community, we'll take the precautions on whatever that community response is. Bringing people in from Wagga or from across from Tumba or adjacent LGAs to be able to support the works. We've actually got a COVID-19 management plan that's been drafted and put in place at the moment in consultation with the state government, which will probably be rolled out across multiple major organisations and schools and the like. So it's all aligned. So we do have somebody that's feeling ill. They'll be self-isolated straight away for 14 days. They'll be sent to the appropriate medical facilities for testing and so on. So at the moment, I think there's only a few cases outside of Sydney towards the south. I think Shoalhaven's got one, Illawarra's got one, I'm not sure of this location at the moment, but none. We want to keep it that way. I don't think Wagga's got any. Is Joe here at the moment? Joe, is anything in Wagga at the moment? No? Okay, so Orange.
The reality is it's going to come.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
the point that's being made is quite a reasonable point.
Yeah, that's right. So we just have to manage it as we go. It's probably no different to tourists coming into town. It's no different to career drivers coming into town. Once our people are here, they'll be set up here. They should not be gallivanting in Sydney or around the place. They'll probably head home to their own families for their days off. But I think we're just going to have to deal with it when the situation arises. But there's plans, there's mechanisms in place that we can react to it.
I guess the
concern
is that if one member of your team is unwell, is that going to throw the whole train off the track, or can you isolate that person and bring other people in and hopefully stay somewhere aligned with your?
Yeah, so it's a very good question. I'm mandated with my team down in the South Coast at the moment, where I've asked them not to go to RSL clubs, restaurants that are packed. Try and isolate yourself away from it.
When you go.
So yeah, we're trying to mitigate the potential of exposure from our workers as well. We want to keep them working, so we've asked them to keep away from those busy areas, not attend forums like this, but it's a real thing, and everyone's learning every single day how to contain it and how to manage it and so on. So all we can do is encourage our people that are working for us to keep a fair distance away. When they come and live here and work here for a short period of time, we're encouraging them to use RSLs and local restaurants to build or stimulate your economy. But yeah, we're learning every single day. Again, if one team member of a crew of 5 becomes ill, we'll need to set down that team and anyone that's been around that person for the previous days. That's what's mandated by the state and federal government at this point in time. We'll put them into isolation. So there could be a set down and a delay within the works if that does occur. Hopefully it doesn't. Very good question. Yep.
Have you engaged any contractors as yet?
We haven't as yet. We're in consultation with Bremer that's doing the cannery clean-up at this point in time. They're a competent asbestos contractor. The top tier asbestos contract, I should go back a step. All asbestos has been burnt and damaged through as bushfires deemed to be friable. So there's different levels of asbestos contractors. So that top level of friable asbestos removalists, those contractors are very limited within the state at the moment, purely because of the works that are being performed at this point in time. So we're looking at engaging that team. Council has given us a good recommendation. They're doing a good job down here. When they build and expand their team, we've told them that when we get into contract with them. There's a local industry participation requirement that they employ local people in there. So hopefully we can go to a one-stop shop and they build the resources internally down here. For the works that do not contain asbestos, so it's a general clean-up, we've been having some consultation with and discussion with an Aboriginal group out of Wagga, Aboriginal Beata Terra group. They're very keen to get involved and work with the local land councils over here and employ local Indigenous people as well as local people as well. They're actually a registered training organisation, so they can support the training of people as well. So.
People with machinery,
Yep.
trucks and everything like that, like Shire and Tuna.
Yep.
Have they applied to be on board with you?
So we've got limited, we do have limited people registered in this Snowy Valleys area through the Services New South Wales website. So if you jump on there and try and register through, then you're on our radar.
So when you contract to like the RMS or the Shire in Tuna or the Tama Shire, how it used to be or whatever, you go on the government register. This chap here should be able to look them up and see who's eligible to come onto the website. You should be able to do that beforehand without getting people to come to you. You've already got them registered with the state government to do works with the roads and all that sort of stuff. So can you use that register to look for that stuff?
Yeah, look, there certainly is a few different government registers. Those registers have been passed on to Laing O'Rouke. The issue is that those people that are registered on those various panels still need to express an interest. They might be busy doing other works and might not be available. So I suppose that Laing O'Rouke also being the managing contractor, they have their own systems that people will need to make sure that they comply with, and I'm sure if they're on a panel that they would meet most of those requirements anyway. So that's why I suppose there's a little bit of a disconnect there, and there is a separate process. We need to know the people who are interested and available, and need to make sure that they comply with the requirements of Laing O'Rouke systems as well.
So you aren't actually approaching anybody or anything, or the Shire hasn't approached any of their contractors to help with the clean-up or anything, and say, well, this is a Laing O'Rouke, like it's 8 or 9 weeks after the fires now, and I don't feel that enough's been done by the state government or the Shires to get the people in and cleaning up. When you just have a register of people that do state government works.
So when...
It's not Laing O'Rouke's problem, it's just something the other they could have had a kickstart with you guys.
So since the bushfire started, Procure New South Wales has put a portal or link up on the Services New South Wales as well. So people have registered in the past months. We have that data being provided by, is it Procure New South Wales or New South Wales Procurement? New South Wales Procurement. We have passed that data on to us of people that have previously registered as well. So we do have that information. We've incorporated that into the ICN portal, which is the Industry Capability Network portal, which we're using for people to register. If you go through the Services New South Wales, there's a link on there to register an interest for working on the bushfires on Services New South Wales. Click on that, register, express an interest. You are then on our radar as a potential contractor to undertake works in your area. So what we do is we're engaged to use local industry first. If we can't commit to local industry, or we do not have the numbers in capacity and capability within the local industry, we then can go to the adjacent LGA, keeping it regional. Absolute last, we use people out of Sydney or Canberra. We're mandated, and we want to use local people where we can. We want to keep money here. So if you jump onto Services New South Wales and follow the bushfires and then register, you'll be on our radar. We'll know who you are. Sorry.
Specific question. My old house, the old septic system, is that in part of your scope to clean it up, pump it out and remove it? Or?
Is the septic system underground or is it elevated?
It's underground. Yeah.
Underground. We will be making it safe and capping it.
Yeah, that's what I mean, the tank's underground. Is it part of your scope to pump it out or not?
Is the tank damaged from the fire or is it?
Well,
fit?
for you to clean the house up, you're going
Yeah, I think it's one of those things we need to come out and have a look. We've seen so many different septic tank systems.
You've made a lot of mess down the South Coast with septic tanks.
I don't think we made a mess on it. Down there, it's some septic tanks are actually set up to a reticulated system or a pressure charge system as well. So we're working quite closely with Shoalhaven Council, Shoalhaven Water, where we've identified septic tanks in backyards or in the front yard, but wherever it be. We've actually got Shoalhaven Council coming in and doing the make safe of the septic tanks so they can be reused at a later date. In the area of Batlow, we've commenced works in Mogo and in around Batemans Bay. They've got a sewer system in place. There's not many septic tanks there. That's pretty well the only place that we've been working down there. So we've had no dramas with septic tanks at all, but if it's in ground and safe to be reused.
No, it can't be reused under council rules.
Under council laws, is it? Okay.
It's an old system that they say can't reuse, so
Yeah.
gonna have to reuse it.
You might. Yeah, it will be case by case. We're going to look at it, but we don't rule anything out until we get out there. If it's an issue that we can't resolve, what we do is we put it to Public Works, and then they have an independent committee that will review it and come back with a determination on it. You're right in saying if you're going to rebuild, you need to be code compliant, which means you need to comply with the current standards, whether it be power rating or whether it be structural rating or whether it be wind loading, whatever it is, you need to build to the current standards. And a lot of sewer systems that are old do not meet our requirements. So when you rebuild, if you're insured, the insurer should have that included in your rebuild. That's a good question. Lady at the back.
I'll just let you know that the insurance told me, because I would have had to replace mine with a newer system, that it was on it wouldn't be under the clean-up, that I would have had to dispose of that myself, pay for that myself, get rid of the old septic tank.
Again, we'll make an assessment when we come out of it. If it's damaged due to the bushfires,
I've already done mine.
have you?
Because the insurance told me it wouldn't be covered under the clean-up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hope you washed your hands after it. Gentleman here.
Yeah, will Laing O'Rouke accept liability for any damage caused by your subcontractors that's outside the scope of work, like damaging existing infrastructure that what was supposed to be retained?
You just reminded me I didn't fully answer your question about utilities before as well, so I'll start on utilities. We have a utilities manager that's licensed electrician, an ASP level 2 type electrician, and City Water appointed person. So they go around and do an assessment of the utilities that come into your site, whether it be power, water, gas, or whatever. So
it's mainly landscaping I'm thinking of.
Yeah. I'll get to that in a second. So we need to ensure that the property is disconnected from any charged utilities or power or gas or whatever, as well as water. When we agree the scope of works, some people might want to retain structures that just can't be retained. So we just need to look at it on a case by case as well. You're probably sick of me hearing case by case, but we go out, we look at every single property, and there's so many different scenarios out there. But landscaping, if we can set a machine up that can safely clear the works away from the landscaped area without affecting coppers, logs, sleepers, or any type of batters or gardens, we will agree that with you during the scope of works.
But if the subcontractor does cause any damage, who pays for that? You or the subcontractor or me?
Yeah. So with the agreed scope of works, Phil just brought up a good case. So we agree a scope of works. We have a deed of release. You give us ownership of your property while we do the works. You cannot, if you deem that the works have not been done satisfactorily to the agreed scope of works and there's damage, you do not sign that. We then wear the liability of repair or replacement and so on. But let me make it clear, we'll be doing everything we can to ensure that we don't damage anyone's assets or properties.
I'm sure.
We're not going in there gung ho.
Yeah,
We'll have a supervisor there monitoring and watching the works to ensure that whatever the agreed scope is, we'll maintain.
Might wind it up there.
Yep.
Okay, we might wind it up. If you've got any more specific questions, come and see these gentlemen afterwards. Thanks very much for your attendance, and if you've got any other questions, send an email to your, contact your local council, send an email to us, and we'll forward that request on.
Okay.
Thank you.